Hey, kids, welcome back. You only get one opportunity to make a first impression. But what happens is when you're out of the loop for a little bit, you forget to plug in something. And I forgot to plug in my microphone. So these poor guys here, they're scrambling around trying to figure out what they were doing. It was me. I apologize. So, yes, I was rusty. And, yes, it cost us a little time. But if you were listening in British Columbia, it is starting around 1 o'clock. So we've got that going for you. Hi, and welcome to the inaugural edition of Just a Game. I am your host, Rob Kerr. I am coming home. I'm excited to be home. But, Rob, this is the first time we've seen you on the Nation Network or the Barn Burner. Yes, but I am coming home. 20-odd years ago, this was my show, Just a Game, in Edmonton. And I left it to move to Calgary to join 960. Jason Greger took it over, and he turned it into a friggin' empire. And an amazing job. He did so much so that he eventually just put his own name on it and gave up the Just a Game moniker, and he was kind enough to let me go back to it. So 20 years later, here we are with a program called Just a Game. And what is Just a Game all about? Well, it's about Calgary in this case. It's about our teams and our sports. It's going to be heavy hockey. Yep. For sure, but not only. And I'm very excited about this and hugely honored that the Nation Network is allowing me to be the first sports talk show. So they've had a lot of other programs. They're all great programs. They're all hockey programs. In the case of baseball and soccer, there's programming there too. But this is going to be a sports talk show. So while we are going to concentrate in the winter months on hockey, we are also going to cover the CFL, Major League Baseball. We've got a basketball team starting up here in our city. We've got a soccer team, Cavalry. We've got some women's soccer coming. There's lots going on. And plus, we've got some stories. I retired in 2018. I'm unretiring 4.5 years later. And guess what? We still don't have an arena, nor do we have a field house. And I said it earlier to Boomer. Quite honestly, I feel like this city sometimes is dragging a little bit, that its lip is down, that we need to throw some electricity in the old wazoo and get her all fired up again. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to do it, but we're going to try to figure out who can. We are going to try to figure out who can. Glad you're with us. A little later on, we are hoping to have managing editor Ryan Pike from Flames Nation join us. Lots to talk about with Ryan. Of course, the Flames coming off a tough loss yesterday. Building issues, all kinds of things, so looking forward to that. This is a program that you will hear Monday, Wednesday, and Friday right here, 1 to 3-ish, and then podcast on your favorite Apple or Spotify account. Go and find it. And I believe the term is leave us a good review. Find it, rate it, and love it, and we'll do more of it. So we're really excited about this. Big day for me as well. Encourage you to check out my website, which got launched today, robkerr.ca, which will host this program as well as my little business. We'll get into that a long time. Anyway, went off on a long tangent about why we're doing this and all that. If you want to learn more, just go to my LinkedIn page because I feel like I'm throwing a lot at you. So why don't we take a deep breath? Feels better. By the way, look at the graphics package. Thanks to the Tan Man for doing that. I love it. Just a Game. It looks great. Let's bring the guy in who's responsible for all of this. And he's working. This is a very long day for him because apparently he's been up since about 1:30 this morning because he forgot he doesn't have to get up early. And then he did his own show very well and then has done a nice job of recovering after I pulled out all the plugs and said, hey, guys, let's try to figure this out. Boomer, Dean Molberg joins us as we reunite Kerboom from many decades ago. How you holding up? You okay? You good?
I'm real good, buddy.
Are you really good?
How could a guy sleep when it's debut day of Just a Game? How's a guy going to sleep? Look at that.
I don't know.
Look at that right there.
It's pretty cool, isn't it?
Hey, look at that.
I know.
You're on the World Wide Web.
That's us.
Yeah.
Not bad, right? Not bad.
Look at us.
It looks good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks good, buddy.
Hey? Tip of the hat to you, sir. The name and the logo was not the original one, and then you got us there. And it looks good. It looks really good.
I feel like that's got to be how that stuff works. Is I don't know, and then and then something comes like, well, it'd probably be good to do this one, and then everybody likes it, and it just becomes the natural one.
Yeah.
We were sitting having lunch one day, and said, well, this I don't know, it doesn't quite feel right. And he said, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to do the original, my show, my original one.
Yep.
Well, which one? Well, Just a Game. Just a Game with Rob Kerr. Well, that's got to be it. And like you said, because Jason Greger took it over and all of that, it's the whole thing is awesome. That you're doing it again, that it's just a game. I said it on the last show, that you have the flexibility and the freedom to have those long-form conversations or short-form, basically just to do whatever you feel needs to be done. Because you've always had a very good sense of what people are interested in, what people want to hear. You're never going to please everybody, and nor should you try.
Yeah.
But I think that in general, you've been a favorite of many people, and Calgary sports fans should be pumped today, because I won't take credit for it. I'm just glad that it happened. That when you were let go from your previous job, we were already here, and I said, this is one of the best sports talk guys in the country.
Yeah.
And he's sitting here looking for something to do. If we can make it happen, let's make it happen. And to their credit, as you said, Jay and Jared and those guys are like, well, if you think that's the way it should be. And this is going to be awesome. I look forward to watching you do what you do best, buddy.
It's been refreshing because, we had those meetings, and one of the questions I said, what are you guys looking for? What do you want? And they basically said, just don't get us thrown in jail, right? And it's, well, it hasn't been that way in a while, right? The marching orders have been different for different reasons, but you come in here with the freedom to do it. And I say, we're going to talk a lot of hockey. You and I are going to talk a little bit of hockey, but there's some other stuff going on here that I definitely want to explore, and I look forward to it. I look forward to bringing back some of the familiar voices. Tomorrow, as a matter of fact, a regular appearance from Bonesaw. Bonesaw will be rejoining the program.
Haven't heard that in a decade or
right?
more, at least.
Yeah. So, look forward to Bonesaw being here. And then hockey legend Harry Bearzan's actually going to co-host with me on Friday.
Is he?
Yeah. So he'll tell us again how he broke Jim Nill's jaw.
Right.
Like, spin the hits, as they say.
At some point, they're new stories again.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
They're new again.
Exactly.
Those are all new again.
Exactly. By the way, if you're looking up in the corner, we are live from the Oodle Noodle Studio. You know that?
I do, yeah.
The Oodle Noodle Studio. We bring the heat. Have you tried the butter chicken mac and cheese? No?
I have not.
How about the Kung Pao noodles?
Yes.
You have?
I have.
And?
Awesome.
Okay. The Bangkok Pad Thai Classic?
Not yet.
Okay. And also vegetarian and gluten-friendly options as well. Did you know that?
I was there a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I had the hot box.
Oh, you did you?
I did.
I was going to put the hot box in my liner, but I felt like that could be misinterpreted.
It's only dirty if you make it dirty.
All right.
Okay. No, it's delicious. Had some shrimp in there. Oodle Noodle, 17th. Truly, it's awesome.
2 locations, 1244 17th Avenue Southwest, and for our folks in Airdrie, 105 Main Street North in Airdrie, pickup and delivery.
Do you want it now before we move on? Because I feel like this is a good time for memory lane.
Yes.
I said you've always kind of had a good sense for what's topical. Do you want to talk about the time where, out of all the years we worked together, the biggest ball drop that you had? You won't remember right now, but as soon as I start talking, you will. Rob and I used to work together doing afternoons. My show would start at 1.
Yeah.
Rob would come on at 2.
Yeah.
And on a game day, you have it's a full kind of a day. You have
Yep.
the home team comes out and they do their morning skate. Then you go into the locker rooms and you do your interviews. Then the visiting team skates. Then you do their interviews. And by that time, we're just at about 1 o'clock. So it's tight turn from visiting room, upload audio, start the show.
Right.
The Dallas Stars are in town. The Dallas Stars are in town.
Yes.
I believe Dave Tippett is still the coach.
Dave Tippett is the coach.
And
if you don't fill in that blank, I will.
Dave Tippett's the coach. And I'm in the hot stove. We'd done the Flames room. We're getting ready. And I said to Rob, do you want to get anything from the Dallas room? Should we go in? And you were like, no, I don't think I need anything. You had something else already for the game that night. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to go in. And I came back about 10 minutes later with a look on my face like, you can't believe what you just missed. And that was the Sean Avery, I had Dion Phaneuf sloppy seconds day.
Yeah.
And then remember, that afternoon turned on a dime.
Yes, it did.
Because then it was like, Dion's going to kill this man.
Right.
Can Gary Bettman allow that? What's going to happen? What are we going to see?
Right.
And then I guess we eventually got to the Bettman level, and they did. They made Avery sit that game out.
So one of the things that I don't want to do with this show is I refer to it a little bit as old school sports talk, but I don't ever want to be the old man waving at the clouds saying, "Get off my lawn." One of us is One of us is misremembering the story. One of us, and it could be me.
Possible.
It could be me, because I remember the story as being in the Dave Tippett scrum and being turned off by Dave Tippett lecturing us about Sean Avery, because somebody, and it was likely Jermaine Franklin, asked him about Sean Avery, and he said, "Sean Avery has been the best player. We couldn't ask for any more. You guys keep bringing it up. Sean Avery's a model player. We love it." And then I remember being in the room, and I thought you were there.
Yeah.
And Franklin was there with the TSN flag and the microphone, and Avery came out and he said, "Where's TSN?" Mm-hmm. And he went right to Jermaine and he said those comments.
Yeah.
So I think we were both in the room snug up against 1 o'clock.
Were you there for it?
Yes, because I was standing right next to Franklin.
Because I knew that Tippett had just defended Avery.
100%. But I thought we were both there. Like, I thought we were both there because we kind of looked at each other, and I think this is me misremembering, or I'm now assuming your stories because they're better than mine.
Yeah.
But I also remember saying to you, "Can we run that audio?" And I believe you said, "Crap, yeah, we can."
Yeah.
Because he said it, right?
Yeah.
And then you're right, though. It was on. Like, we were calling the boss, and we were, and then it came down that he was.
That was one of those cool days
Yeah.
where our little radio station, our little city, the team, and
Sure.
that game that night became the focus of the National Hockey League. Like Gary Bettman chiming in on that night's game. And we thought it's going to be like Slapshot. They're going to have ambulances circling the building.
Oh, yeah.
Who is going to kill Sean Avery today?
Yeah.
And then they took him out of the game. And you're right, Tippett had just gone to great lengths. I also remember that day, Mike Ribeiro had the craziest suit on I've ever seen. It looked like he was wearing a tinfoil suit.
Yeah.
It was a shiny, reflective silver suit.
Insane.
That only a guy like that could pull off. Like very lean and slender and kind of a, not European, but he just kind of had, okay, I guess you could pull that off. You and I were not pulling that off.
We were not pulling that off.
No.
Did I steal this story from you, or was I there? Washington's in town. We're getting ready to go on the air, and Boudreaux comes to the door and looks around and looks at us and goes, "You guys don't have a window." He just seemed so concerned about the two of us not having any light.
Yeah. Well, I remember I came in, and it was Washington. It might have been the same trip, although we did this for years. And sitting at our desks on our laptops, checking their email, Ovechkin and Nick Backstrom.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, guys. No, it's okay. It's okay. Go ahead.
Now, tell the story.
Yeah.
Did you keep the folder open?
Well, yeah, I just had to go back and see what it was. And it was some Russian.
So you couldn't open it.
No.
Or you couldn't read it, I should say. You could open it, but you couldn't read it.
I couldn't figure out what the hell it was. And then I figured, I'll just let it go.
Who's the tough guy from Nashville that just came in and stretched out on the couch and started watching TV? You remember that?
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
See, you were there on Saturdays.
No. This was an afternoon. He wasn't dressed. He got skated afterwards, and he just came in and just stretched out on the couch and started watching TV.
We had a chair, a red leather recliner.
Oh, yes.
On the hot stove. And it was a very cool chair.
Yeah.
And we were going to get people in Ovi.
We did. He signed the whole thing. He did.
Everybody else would sign their autograph. He came in and just right across the whole back of it, which was cool. You couldn't make out what it said.
Yeah.
But I remember the Islanders were in town, and it was Rick DiPietro, goalie, came in. I guess DiPietro was the goalie at that time, and he wore number 39.
Yeah.
And we had Doug Waite, who at that time, was he already assistant coach?
No, that was him
still
wrapping
playing?
up his career, yeah.
Yeah. And he came in. It's like, "Hey, Doug, can we get you to sign the chair?" He's like, "Yeah, of course. What's it for? Charity, that sort of thing." And he looks and puts Doug Waite. And he stops, and you see he's kind of thinking about it. It's like, fuck it, he says. And he puts in 39, because that's Doug Waite's number. But DiPietro was wearing it. Fuck DiPietro. Number 39. Damn right, Doug. Damn right. We had some good, there was some really cool, that was the thing about that hot stove lounge. No one, and I said on the last show, because I remember you with Just the Game and the Sports Ticker on Friday nights. On what station?
It was CJCA, so 9:30 CJCA, The Light.
And what was outside of you doing the Sports Ticker and yelling? What around the clock? What was?
Well, yeah, it was a Christian, station. John Short did afternoons from 2 to 6:30. So he did, 4 to 6:30. So John did 2.5 hours, and then I came on at 11 to 1.
Prime time.
Yeah, it was, and at the time, like, it was the greatest thing in the whole world. All I remember is that we'd open up the lines to take calls, and every fourth caller was, "Why do they play that Britney Spears at the Coliseum? She's a sinner." And it just it struck a chord with some of the natural listeners to the station, and I can only imagine. Now, what I know about the business, I can only imagine some of my listeners getting up in the morning and hearing, crap, like coming out of this thing going, what was I listening to?
I remember the first time that I heard you.
Yeah.
I was with Cam Moon.
Yeah.
Every year I was working in Red Deer. Rebels played whoever it was, probably the Hitman, preseason in Stettler. And driving back from Stettler, and he's like, "Oh, I wonder if Rob's on." And he's like, "Oh, he's a guy in Edmonton, and he knew of you."
All Mooner's the best.
And I think we called in because the Eskimos. I think that was always right around the time the Eskimos. It was the Labor Day rematch in Edmonton with the big crowd, and we had called in, and you were, "Hey, it's Cam Moon," and you were like roaring. And then into the sports ticker, I'm like, what is this guy's deal? He's like, "Oh yeah, he just goes on this thing, and he just yells at everybody, and he's pumped up all the time."
And we adopted teams. The Rancho Cucamonga Quakes. I remember from the old Bugs Bunny cartoon, and I could not believe that Rancho Cucamonga, California, actually had a team.
Place.
So we, adopted them and did their scores.
So it was true. So then I'm in Red Deer, and I guess I had already. No, because I was listening to the Fan 960. Mm-hmm. And the post-game shows were a half hour long. And the pre-game show, I don't even know if it existed. There was just nothing. And the station as a whole, I guess Mike was there, right?
Nope.
Richard's not even yet?
Nope. The only live, actual, interactive show when I got there was Joe and Kevin in the afternoon. Rick Lafitte did the highlights in the morning show. So I remember I did a month of it. And, it bored me to tears because I was just replaying the best of Greeny and Goldberg and best of Jim Rome and best of Joe and Kevin. So I started getting people on. I learned how to put a guest on, and I started bringing guests on. And then I remember the Rocket coming in going, please don't do that. And I go, why? He goes, well, because Rick's got to come back, and he doesn't want to do that. So as a result, I got stopped from having guests in the morning show.
But you came in and you changed that radio station. The way it is today, the way it's been for the last 20 years, is because you came in and you did that. And then, because the Hot Stove Laundry was never used for stuff very often, then you had to do the show from there. And the door had to be open.
Only argument that Peter Martin I've ever had about opening the door. He
Door's
did not
got to be
want
open.
the door open.
Yeah.
He did not want the door open. And it was claustrophobic to me, right? And then it was the famous hallway interviews, right? Like Ken King would come and start screaming at me. And I'd scream back at him. And nobody could hear the other side. It didn't matter to me, but it gave that sense of, we were someplace.
But that door being open, it welcomed it. I think of the things that happened that would not have happened if that door were
Bruce
closed.
Boudreau, or one of the best was Billy Niemanen when Niemanen played for San Jose, and they scratched him, and he was so depressed, and he came in after the game and he put a headset on, and it was like 2 weeks before the trade deadline. And, you're not playing a lot, Billy. Where you want to get traded? I'd like to come back to Calgary. I just. These spur-of-the-moment things. I will push back on one thing, and it's not me being humble or anything, but I do believe that it was the perfect storm. The run out of the blue in 04, the Red Mile run, that just put all of these ears and all of this attention on this sports station, and it blew up. And the best part of it was they were going so hard, we were on all the time. Right? They weren't hearing canned content. They weren't hearing spring sports talk in Calgary like they normally had. There was actually a going concern, and we really maximized that.
Well, and I'll push back there because you realize not everyone would have been on all the time. You had the platform to do it, but you weren't saying, hey, if you pay me time and a half, I'll do an extra hour.
Right.
you just wanted to be on.
Yes.
There was so much excitement. They couldn't take you off the air
Right.
because this was what you
But
had.
it was never ego. It was just like, oh my God, let's do this. Like, we got to talk about this. And again, I'll defend him to the hilt. I know he's not, the Rocket. Just eventually there came a point in time where I didn't realize there was a cost. And that cost was actual manpower. That I just assumed that the producer who was staying and answering the phones loved it as much as I did, and was doing it out of the goodness of their heart too.
Right.
And so that became a bridge that we couldn't cross. But no, to me it was like, I'll never forget coming down to Calgary because I had just covered the Oilers in the Dallas series. The Flames didn't make the playoffs. There was nothing about the Flames that was attractive in 2003. Prior to that run in the summer. Right. And I remember meeting Peter Hanlon from the Flames at Father David Bauer there having a camp. And, I introduced myself and he said, hi, well, welcome to Calgary. I said, I'm really excited to be here. And he looked at me and said, really? Kind of like, really? Okay. And it just all worked out. And the rest, as they say. But we had the freedom. Like,
I mean, you're not wrong. The Rocket was good at getting out of the way. Sometimes when he
the business changed on him.
It's like, okay, you guys, because the show that Mike did, Mike Richards, the stuff that you did, the stuff that Rhett and I and Pinder and
Absolutely.
He just kind of trusted that that our instincts were good, and he let us do our thing. But for you, it was, and again, so to take away some of your humble, a lot of guys could have gone on and done hours of radio. It was that genuine passion that you still have, but that you had at that point.
Yep.
You couldn't manufacture it. It wouldn't be as good to listen to, and people wouldn't have listened to it. But man, I just remember it was all day listening to 960 at that time. Because round 1 went to 2, and 2 went to 3. Because you go back, I remember in 03 I went to a game. It was a midweek game. The third decks are closed. There's curtains in front of them, and you could sit wherever you wanted.
Yep.
Wherever you want.
Absolutely.
And then I remember hearing Peter Marr on a Sunday morning, I think it was, saying that the Flames have traded for Mika Siprikov. It's like, I think it's Kiprasov, but I don't know. San Jose. I remember it clear as day. I remember where I was. I was in Red Deer. I was driving. It was a snowy day, and you talk about the perfect storm. That's kind of where it all started. But
they had beaten Edmonton 4-1 the night before. If you remember, there was 3 fights in the first 30 seconds. Ethan Morrow and and Dave Lowry. Adam Lowry. Look at me, I'm dating myself. It was all kinds of craziness. And then just to go back to what you were talking about with how empty it was. That year I learned so much. And part of it was, my youthful enthusiasm was not rooted in intelligence. Because I thought, if we just encourage fans to bring noisemakers and make it loud. So I would go on the radio and I'd say, bring a noisemaker, I'll bring you some prizes. So we didn't know people were listening, and they bring a cowbell. So I'd walk out from the broadcast booth, I'd take a t-shirt. I was just picking up crap from the kitchen that was just left there, like t-shirts and videos and stuff, like video cassettes probably at that point. And then people started dropping off prizes and stuff like that. That was great. So I was going out, and more and more people were showing up with noisemakers, and I was going out and giving. Well, apparently your sales department doesn't like it when you just take things from random companies and give them credit for nothing on the air. So that was one of my big learning lessons then too, right?
And that door being open.
Yeah.
There was so many days. I remember we'd be sitting there, and Daryl Sutter would walk in, sit down, and he'd want to, what happened in Strathport, the Chucks, on the weekend? Or what's the weather? Have you heard getting any rain up in northern part of the lake? Whatever it was. Yeah. Rodeos or farm or whatever. Yeah. We'd never talk hockey with the guy. Nope. Not without a microphone and a backdrop.
No, and when you started to, it disappeared.
It went away.
Yeah, it went away. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember him telling us about, I guess it was Chicago, because that was one of his things. He's like, man, Chicago, it's such a great town. And at that point they hadn't.
No, they were terrible.
It's like, I would love, like, that'd be amazing to go in there, because you could turn that around and that city would explode. And how right he was.
He was absolutely
within a year or two, careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
They were pretty good.
Yeah.
But you, and then draft coverage. You did the first draft for 960.
Yeah, at Vancouver 2006.
Why? Were you sent, or did you say, I'd really like to go, or I'm going?
I said, well, why don't we go do the draft? And, I know what it was, because I figured out you could get, there was a media site for the NHL, or for the media, on the NHL website. So I got accreditation of that, and I got game notes and stuff. It was really cool. At that time, it meant something. And one of the press releases came out, register now for Vancouver draft, and, hotel has to be in and everything. So I printed it off and I gave it to the Rock, and I said, we should go. He said, what will you do? I said, I'll just do shows. So I remember, and you know what it became, but when I went to Vancouver, I had to get the guys on the floor to set up a table for me. I was there a day early, took the gear in, set up, and they were hammering and putting the whole stage together, doing a show and everything. And I'll never forget it. Like, they just kind of built the whole thing, and I was doing it. And, the Flames were great. They brought over guests. Jimmy Rutherford had just won a Stanley Cup with Carolina, and he was there like, a half hour early. Hey, Jimmy, you got some time? So he came on, and Gary came over, and we just did. Yeah, you just did the show, right? And
but that was new territory for that station, and in a lot of ways, like you say, there was a lot of there was a lot of elbow room. There were not many radio stations.
It was no. It was a handful. It was a local radio station from Vancouver. Us, and I think not Sirius, but whoever the NHL network was at that point, right? And the rest was all newspaper guys. Yeah. So it was fun. But the one I'm proudest of is the free agency show, because that was the first. I'll never forget, Pat and I did that show in the middle of August, and Kirsch goes, go ahead and do it if you want. Yeah. And they signed Corey Sarge. So I left Pat. I think it might have been one of the first shows Pat kind of carried on his own. And I drove to the Dome and had the little flip phone, and they brought out Corey Sarich in a Flames golf shirt. We had Corey Sarich that Sunday morning on Canada Day, or Sunday afternoon on Canada Day. And I'm thinking, and we're kind of thinking, like, is this something? And then all these years later, I mean, we're, arguably 10, 11 days away from maybe the biggest viewing day or consumption day in this country for the sport, trade deadline and free agency and all that stuff. We just had the freedom back there to try it. Right. Okay.
Unlimited. I'm just thinking, because now what are you going to do? Because the draft and free agency, and as long as you want to go on call-in shows.
Yeah, it's kind of been done. To me, it's more focused on the content. That was endurance, right? Like I always said, I'm a dog. Just let me run. Let me out of the yard, and I'll run, and I'll run, and I'll run, and I'll run. Now I think, poor Tan Man doesn't need me coming in here going, let's do 9 hours of podcast today. After he's done your show, that probably wouldn't go over well. I think it's got to be the content. I think it has to be, finding that niche. I think the one thing about sports talk now that is different than when I got into it is there's almost the different branches and the different forms of it. You've got kind of that, gambling and lifestyle component to it. I think you have the bro stuff. I think you have the intellectual stuff. I think you have the analytic stuff. I think there's still room to come back. And we'll get into, the local hockey heroes. I heard your show this morning. I listened to most of them, and it's got to be a little creepy and a little bit frustrating at times to come back and go, oh, here we go again. They crap the bed against a bad team, right? There's bigger things at work there. I said it on your show. I said it when I started this show today. I love my city. I love my home. I think there's a lot of good here, but I think we've gotten a little fat and lazy, and we're not the city that we need to be. And I think there's some infighting and some politics, and there's always money and all of those sort of things. But I think somebody's got to start, shining a light. Not that they're not, but I think, and Ryan's done this amazing job of covering the arena. I want to tip my hat to Ryan Pike. He's really, really kind of made a name for himself. But I think there's other things. There's the field house. There's new sports coming in. I heard you guys today talk about, what if you did the Vegas stuff in Calgary, and what did you refer to them as? The
Blue Hairs.
The Blue Hairs. I truly believe we are moving away from the way the game has been consumed and presented into a different, and kicking and screaming and all of those sort of things. But I think there's some room to have those conversations too. And I think there's a lot of good that needs to be highlighted. I think there's some really cool things that are going on in this city, some really cool people in this city. So to me, it'll probably be less about the endurance and more about finding, those things that are maybe falling through the cracks. Big club as well, and the NHL are going to take. I think we're sitting on a huge story in the National Hockey League. I really do. I think last week's story about the missing the payments on the RSNs for Bali, I think Rogers is going to probably just walk right away from the deal here in 3 years. TSN and Bell, they can have it. They're not going to bid it up. That could, prove to be a little bit interesting in terms of people talking about salary caps that were going to $100 million, and they very well could, but
it's a lot of money.
And the other one, and I won't lie to you, the other one that I've been chomping at the bit to get back into is this country right now, when it comes to its national sports organizations, when it comes to its high-level organizations, they're under fire. We've seen it with Hockey Canada. We're seeing it currently play itself out with Soccer Canada. Those are some of those conversations I want to get into. So I've got a manifesto. I'll get to the manifesto a little later, but that's where we're going. You want to talk about the heroes? We got Ryan Pike coming up here in a bit. Ryan's still good to go? Yeah, okay. But I do want to kind of touch base. Is there not some deja vu here for you? Here we are going back in the time machine. Does this not feel eerily similar in a way to Mike Keenan's tenure here?
You know what? I was going to say, there's two. There's the end of the Daryl Sutter general manager time where out of the blue, Jokinen and Prust are off to New York for Higgins and Kodalik. It just
Chris Higgins.
I get with the deck chairs, right? Like what the hell? What? It was moves to make moves.
Yeah.
And then at the end of Jay Feaster's reign, where you had a Gindel leave town and then Bouwmeester, like all that happened, and you were left with an old, slow team that was making lots of money, that wasn't necessarily that hungry to win anymore. You were just you were dying for that next wave of youth to come in. So I don't know which one it's giving me deja vu of, maybe a little bit of all of them, but I do worry that that we're seeing that. Rhett was talking about it this morning, that you start getting too many guys that are fat and sassy, that have signed that retirement. Mm-hmm. I just won the lottery kind of a deal. How motivated are you? Not everybody isn't motivated, but not all of them are terribly motivated by wins and losses and success and failure and all of that.
As I watch this team, and I won't lie to you, Boom, and I certainly want to be upfront with the listeners of the podcast and the streams, that I have not been as invested in the day-to-day of the Flames in the last 4.5 years, because I've had other things to do, to be perfectly honest, and I took myself out of the hockey operations conversations. Getting back into it, is it too simplistic? You used the word motivated. Is it too simplistic to say that on some nights this team does look motivated, but if maybe once this year I've seen them look inspired? Maybe once that they, I think you get your butt kicked and you get out there and you work hard. Like, they chop wood better than anybody I've ever seen. They are exactly what Daryl wants. Outshoot opponents, territorial, all those sort of things. But are they really damaging? No, their goals do not correlate to their chances. They just don't. So they chop a lot of wood. But they don't ever. The one game I thought they were inspired was the game in New York. They looked inspired, yet they still lost that game.
So what Rhett said this morning, he said, you look back to that first one with the Trouba hits, and it was probably Trouba that
dragged him into it.
Right?
Absolutely.
But you're right. It was, and what's odd about it is when Daryl came in to take over the head coach spot from Jeff Ward, even in games that they didn't win, you couldn't question the effort or the desire, it just felt like they were going. Mm-hmm. They brought back that, well, they didn't win, but you can't fault them because they dug in and they fought for it. This team isn't overly physical. They're not tough. They're not fast. They're like you say, it's toilet seat with their motivation, which has got to be frustrating for everybody, Daryl included. Yeah. How do you get some consistency? They haven't strung back-to-back wins together in about a month.
Yep.
And their goaltending, I would not have guessed.
Is that the biggest issue with this club at this very moment with what's we've seen from them and what's left to be played?
It doesn't change who they are, but it hides the warts, which sometimes is bad In this case, I think it could be good if their power play was a little bit better, and if their goaltending was a little bit better. They've been in so many one-goal games. Now, at the end of the day, are they any closer to a Stanley Cup? Well, you got to get in, chip in a chair. You maybe, who knows? You get a hot goaltender,
right?
But their goaltending hasn't allowed them to feel good or have any kind of momentum for any amount of time.
Vladar, I mean, he's lost one game.
I know,
and then everybody went, "Oh well, it doesn't matter what he did before."
As we had this conversation going back to even before Christmas and that, with Vladar signing the extension, well, you get something good for him, you move forward, you got Wolf and you got Markstrom signed, is that get something for Vladar? Well, what do you got in Vladar? Are you that sold that you're just going to go Markstrom straight to Wolf before you throw him right out? What if you've got something there? And I think it's happened sooner than even I thought. I don't think you can look at Markstrom as being the guy automatically until the end of his contract and just ship out Vladar. I don't know what it is. He had 9 shutouts a year ago. He's got none now. The numbers are just no good. 5-on-5 save percentage. They're bottom 4 or 5 in the league. So if they get better goaltending, do they win more games? They do, because they're in so many one-goal games. Does it change the fact that that they struggle to finish, that it's a lot of shots, but the quality scoring chances really aren't there? It really doesn't, but we're not paying as close attention, I guess. Maybe that's on us. I don't know. And I don't know if that's bad or good.
By the way, we're going to have Ryan Pike here in a couple seconds, so I'm going to let you go.
It's a podcast. There's no clock. It's a podcast.
I understand that, but I want everybody to understand how this is going to flow. Okay. And I don't want to go, and here's Ryan. Who? Oh, we'll get him now. I thought I'd just throw it out there. This would be a good time to get a hold of Ryan. What do we do around here on trade deadline day? Because that's coming up. Are we going to do cool stuff? Like, can I come in at 6 and can we roll?
I told the guys, here's what's going to happen. Rob's here, so Rob's going to be doing trade deadline. We could be a part of it, but Rob will be doing trade deadline. Because what is it? Noon, usually noon, 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. Yeah.
So yeah,
it's going to be right in my wheelhouse. But I mean, we got
the
all these other
is,
guys.
What time do you want us to wrap our show up so you can start, or do we end? We just
keep the line open.
Yeah.
Just keep the
There's nothing wrong with that. By the way,
there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Monday through Friday, Barn Burner, 10:30 to noon, like 90 minutes.
It is a moving. It's fluid. Some people get on the YouTube. So what the hell's wrong with these guys? And rather than go into details, it's not just me, Rhett, and Ryan sitting here deciding not to start.
Oh,
there's a network, and there's people and producers and technical things that and it's not always their fault. Some days we aren't ready to go until 10:40 or whatever it is. But there's moving pieces, and I think there's a potential that the show starts earlier, closer to 10, and then can go till noon, so we have a little bit more time that way. But it's as you've seen today. It's what, like the duck, where it's all kind of calm above water,
100%,
and then underneath it's frantic motion.
Yeah.
Welcome to Flames Nation.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome to Martin Loop.
I used to live in Martin.
I know.
I love it here. Yeah. But thank you, because without this none of this happens without you. So I appreciate your faith in me, and I won't let you down. And I look forward to growing with you guys. Just look at this. Like,
I know.
It's awesome.
I said it before, and I mean, you're born to do this. You're made to do this, and the real winner is the Calgary sports fan. Flames fan for sure, but just fans of sport, because it's just more content.
Yeah.
And there's going to be no shortage of it, and there is more to come. So we've got 2, 3. This is 3 podcasts plus that's 4.
Yeah.
We're building it out.
Yeah.
And
that's pretty cool stuff coming down the pipe.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, pal.
Dean Boomer Mollberg, you can hear him right here and see him. I keep forgetting that. You can see us too, so I apologize. Let me wave to you guys so I know you're here. But you can catch him every day here on the Barn Burner on Flames Nation. This, by the way, is I don't even have to do that anymore because it's right above my head. There you go. Do want to remind you, though, we are live from the Oodle Noodle Studios. Local, loved, and delicious. Since opening their first store back in 2005, Oodle Noodle has been all flavor and just the right amount of weird. Now, isn't that all of us inside, really? all about the flavor and just a little bit weird. 2 locations, 1244 17th Street or 17th Avenue Southwest. I don't want to send you to 17th Street, 17th Ave, 105 Main Street North in Airdrie. Pickup and delivery. So the way this is going to work is we're going to join you on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 1 to 3 live. Having said that, today is not a Monday. It feels a little bit like a Monday, doesn't it? It's a Tuesday, but it's back tomorrow and back Friday. As I mentioned, well, for some of you, you probably picked up on it. Tomorrow, a regular contributor to the program, very excited. The 7-time Hall of Famer, including the National Hockey League Hall of Fame, his plaque is up there. The longtime, the legend, Bonesaw, Peter Marr's going to join us. He's going to be a regular contributor. And speaking of regular contributors, very excited that from The Athletic, Eric DeHatchuk will join us on Friday. Looking forward to having Eric as well. And I mentioned, I believe hockey legend Perry Berezan is going to stop by and co-host the program with me on Friday. We're going to do that. We're going to have some very special co-hosts pop in, friends of the show, as we like to say, as we continue to have some fun here on Just a Game. Do we have our next guest? We do. Really excited to be able to bring in and talk to the managing editor of FlamesNation.ca. You can read him in his features column, and there's one out today, his mailbag, and we're going to get into a little bit of that. But also, he's quite prominent in his pregame and his postgame articles that you can read. And you're going to find him on this show. You're going to find him all over FlamesNation.ca. He is our Flames insider. Ryan Pike joins us. Ryan, how are you today, sir?
Rob, it's good to see you. How you doing?
I have to lip read Ryan because I can't hear him at this very moment. Boom, can you hear him? Nope. All right. Stand by. We know how to solve this. We will fix this issue. Don't you worry. Don't you worry, Ryan. We got your back in all of this. We are just going to, big thumbs up from there. What we could do is, hold on. Are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Not yet. Okay, what I'm thinking we could do is I got a Sharpie. So I'm going to write some questions out, and I'll show them to the camera, and then you can just write your answers. Is that how we can do it? He's there. Yeah. No, I can't hear him. All right. How about now?
Can you hear me now, Rob?
Ryan, don't be afraid.
Hello, Rob.
It'll work this time, we promise.
I was going to say hello, Rob.
Say something, anything. No, I can't.
Hello, Rob.
Damn it. All right. Okay. We're just going to, you don't go anywhere, Ryan. And you don't, we're not going anywhere. We're just going to, see, he can hear me though. That's the best part. So maybe instead of answering in words, he could just use hand signals. So, I could say like, Ryan, yesterday's game, thumbs up, thumbs down. There. He wasn't prepared to go out on the limb. He's only prepared to give it a little bit of both. Okay. All right. The current status of Michael Stone? No, this is where you put the thumb down. I'm okay. I don't know. All right. Stand by. We are going to get Ryan on here. I promise you. And you can read him on FlamesNation.ca. Features his game reports. He's also, again, showing up on podcasts and every once in a while. And you might notice if you bump into him at the Dome that he's wearing Nation gear. And if you go to FlamesNation.ca, you can get your Nation gear as well. So we certainly encourage the exploration of the website and all of the other ancillary websites, because apparently, unbeknownst to me, there's an Oilers Nation. There's a Maple Leafs Nation. Apparently there's an Army in Vancouver, and Ottawa has programming as well. So you can visit all of that off of the Flames Nation site, or if you want to go to my brand new site, which I launched today, robkerr.ca/JAG, which is JAG, which is short for Just a Game. You'll also find a link there for all the Nation Network programming that I could find. So lots and lots and lots for you to consume as we make our way down the old rabbit hole here. Oh, Ryan, I feel terrible for you because you're right there in the screen and you can't say a damn thing.
So
So, I
close,
mean,
yet so
this
far.
would be the perfect time, for me to bring out a long litany of observations and concerns and queries that I have, and you couldn't respond to any of them. You just have to sit there and, well, I suppose you could just log off and you wouldn't have to take it that way. But yeah. Mentioned as well, coming up tomorrow, Peter Marr will join us. Very curious to pick the brain of Mr. Marr, considering the current situation of the Calgary Flames. As I mentioned, a lot of this does feel a little bit like deja vu. If you're a Flames fan, I know I'm not saying anything that you didn't already know or didn't already feel, but Peter Marr is always great at bringing in some historical perspective. I know we were all up in arms about how Bruce Boudreau was treated by the Vancouver Canucks, and it wasn't good. I mean, let's be perfectly honest. That situation didn't go down well. But, a quick call from Peter, text from Pete, and you were reminded about, Roger Nielsen and his time with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So it's one of those things. We're going to take full advantage of having Pete on the show with us. As well, coming up on Friday, Eric Duhatschek. Now, I'm hoping most of you are Athletic subscribers. If you weren't, but you were looking for a reason, one of the things we're going to talk about with Eric on Friday is he was part of a piece that the Athletic ran for a couple of months with the top 100 players in NHL history, and those were deep dives into those players. Now, there's always going to be the arguments about who should be this number and who should be that number. But in the case of Eric Duhatschek, he oversaw the project, and he had the opportunity and the pleasure of speaking to a number of those players, which he wrote the articles about. But it was really interesting. And if I was to pick out one that was probably the signature piece of the whole thing, it was Paul Kariya and that story, because it's not what you expected. Certainly wasn't what I expected. And I thought I knew Paul Kariya fairly well. Certainly covered him in his time in the National Hockey League with the Ducks and with the Predators and briefly with the Abs and that sort of thing. But it was just some really deep, long form conversations as well. And another guy, I mentioned, Perry Berezan, is coming up. In the next couple of weeks, we are hoping to hook up with some other very special guests. As we mentioned, we are, about 12 days or so away from the trade deadline, March 3rd. The Flames will play the night before, and they will play the day after, both at home. But interesting that it falls on a Friday. Very rarely does it ever fall on a Friday. But that's the case we have this year with the trade deadline. So as we look at that, again, the local hockey heroes will be the focus around here. I do suspect that they're going to try and do something. I think it's real easy and low-hanging fruit to say a defenseman, especially now with the injury to Stone. As well, I think offense, if they can find something, what they probably aren't going to do is spend a lot of assets on a rental, because I think if you look at Tree Living, most of his pickups tend to be guys with some terms. So I think the Flames do consider themselves players in this and are going to try to be active. We've already seen some pretty significant forwards moving in the sense Tarasenko and Bo Horvat and Ryan O'Reilly to Toronto. Although Toronto's calling the Ryan O'Reilly trade a blockbuster. I don't know if I'd necessarily portray it as a blockbuster. Now you're left with, Kane's out there, Patrick Kane. I don't think that the Flames are in on Kane. Certainly Erik Karlsson and Chychrun on the blue line side. I don't foresee that they have been connected to Chychrun in the past. Certainly have heard nothing about them to Karlsson. I just don't think they have the assets to play with. And they do have first round picks in the next 3 drafts. The next 2 are theirs, and then they have Florida's in 2025. They've got some second round picks, but you also got to keep adding to that pipeline. So I suspect as we get closer and closer, you're going to hear the drum beats of the Flames being involved in things. That's just how Brad Treliving operates. He is a guy that is known around the league as being in on everything. But realistically, what do they have to offer? Are they prepared to give up on any of their prospects? Maybe. But I think you're going to be looking at smaller deals for the Flames. And it also depends on what does or doesn't happen between now and the trade deadline. Because remember, what the price today for a acquisition is certainly not necessarily the price on the trade deadline day. If nobody's biting, it can certainly come down. So we'll wait and see what happens there. Just a couple other notes, things that we're watching with great interest. The Toronto Blue Jays are in camp, as all Major League Baseball teams are, just starting camp. Very curious to see how the starting rotation works out for the Jays. Very curious to see where Bo Bichette and Vladdy Guerrero are for that club, because as they go, I believe that team goes. Baseball just starting up, and of course, we've got the World Baseball Classic right around the corner. One guy who I don't believe is playing in it, at least he wasn't when I talked to him, is Mike Soroka from Calgary. But he's another guy we're going to keep our eyes on as he comes back from injury and gets set to pitch again for the Atlanta Braves. Another All-Star weekend. We are in the month of February, so you get All-Star weekends and a Pro Bowl thrown in. So we have the long tenured debate about the merits and the desire to continue with All-Star games. The NHL one was a couple of weeks ago. The new format, it's been a format for a while now. The 3-on-3 format does tend to make it interesting for some. I know there was a lot of head scratching and a lot of bemoaning it from longtime media people. These things are never about the media. The media end up spending a lot of oxygen and air talking about the All-Star games, but they're not they've never been intended for the media. They've been intended for the fans. So when you look at those, certainly the NBA, has an interesting relationship with its fans, a very strong relationship with its fans. I can't imagine people loved what they saw with the kind of lack of effort and the lackluster, work through the All-Star game. It is what it is. It's a dunk contest, 3-point shooting contest, those sort of things. The Pro Bowl went away from, did a little flag football, but added some new wrinkles. The NHL added some new wrinkles. One wonders if, part of what restricts these formats is some of the old the thought processes. Like you don't, in the National Hockey League, it's kind of silly to still enforce one player from each team. It just is. It's with 32 teams, it's robbing you of players that should be there. Having said that, the players want to go. And I know the NHL did spend some time talking to the players about what would make these things interesting. So anyway, I've spent more time on the All-Star game here just today than most people normally do. But you had the run of the Pro Bowl and you had the run of the NHL All-Star game and the NBA All-Star game. Those are now in the rear window. The NBA is also past its trade deadline. The NHL trade deadline is coming up. We are getting into that sweet spot in the sports calendar with playoffs. We will soon have March Madness on us. Kind of unbeknownst to me, and I don't know if it was a big shock to you, did you know the XFL started again this weekend? Did you guys realize that the XFL version 2.0 or whatever we're calling this version, I guess 3.0, it started. So again, we have, I heard that.
Can you hear me now?
Who is this? Who's on my line? Is that Ryan Pike?
Is this Rob?
Ryan Pike? Hi, Ryan.
Bob. Hi, Rob.
Hi, Ryan. Just hold on. I just want to talk about the XFL for a couple minutes, and I'll come back to you. We'll start this all over again. He is the managing editor for flamesnation.ca. You can read his mailbag, which is on the website right now. You can also read his pre- and post-game columns consistently for the Calgary Flames prior to the games. But he's also our building insider and our Flames insider. Very pleased to have Ryan Pike join us. Ryan, my apologies. I've been away from the business, so I come back. I just unplugged things that I thought were in my way. And it turns out that I probably shouldn't have done that. So my apologies, sir, for doing that to you. You deserve to come on clean, and I'm at fault for that. So my apologies. So let's start there.
As the longest serving current member of the team, welcome aboard. We're really excited to have you part of the network.
I'm very excited to be here. Really looking forward to some of the crazy stuff we're going to be able to do. But I also feel like I'm kind of getting dropped in at a really interesting time, right outside of the trade deadline, with a hockey club that I don't think any of us would say is overachieving. It's greatly underachieving. And I don't think you can look any further than this past weekend that proves that out. Great game against the New York Rangers. And then I'm not sure what that was yesterday afternoon against the Philadelphia Flyers. You've seen every single minute this year. What did you make of the last couple of games at home for the local hockey heroes?
I'll tell you this. I mean, the structure of their game under Daryl Sutter is very much the same as it was under Daryl Sutter a year ago. And I don't think people remember, because we sort of remember the halcyon days of the playoff run, and the Flames are figuring stuff out pretty much straight on until everybody got COVID last year. They had that, I think, the 19 days off, and then they came back right after Christmas, and then they were in a position where they had games in hand, but they had to go on a run in order to get it, and they had to go on a run, and they went on a run, and they all the things I think that Daryl was hoping that they would figure out, they figured out. And I think we sometimes underrate the intangible qualities of sort of the us against the world kind of thing. I mean, one of the first years I covered the team full time was the 13-14 season, where the Flames had, one of the bigger moments, I think, in this era of the Flames, previous era of the Flames, if you want to call it that, was that line brawl in Vancouver that year, where the Flames were a bad team that had no identity, and they were figuring it out. And it was a young group, and they had no Iginla, they had no Kiprusoff, and they were muddling around. But that game really galvanized things for them. And they went into a summer hearing about how bad the team would be all season. I think, they had finished fourth from last in the league. They drafted Sam Bennett fourth overall. And then they heard to a man from all their friends, family, and people like us was the Flames are going to be bad again. And I think, to a man, everyone who went to training camp that year was personally offended by people thinking so little of them. And they went into that season with a gigantic chip on their shoulder. Right. And it's been sort of a roller coaster since then, because I think sometimes they think they're too good. Sometimes they think they're not very good. And when they think we've seen it this year, when they go into games thinking, oh crap, this is the New York Rangers, this is Madison Square Garden, let's take it to them. They were ready for war in MSG, and they were very emotionally engaged and ready for a war against the Rangers on Saturday. And on Monday, you're obviously going to have an emotional letdown coming from, we've seen it after battles of Alberta. We've seen it after games against Vegas, games against a lot of teams. But the consistency that they had last season, the urgency that they had last season isn't there. And they don't have the ability to outscore their mistakes. When you have a Johnny Gaudreau, when you have a Matthew Tkachuk, when you have a power play that was clicking as well as theirs was last year, you can have Jacob Markstrom letting a softie and it doesn't kill you, because you go like, don't worry about it, we'll score another one.
Yep.
And they always did. This year, a bad read by a blue liner, like the Columbus game. I vividly remember that game in Columbus, the 2-1 loss, where Mackenzie Weegar, threw up a pizza. His exact words, I think, post game were, "I threw up an effing pizza," and they don't have the ability to outscore their pizzas. They don't have the ability to outscore their bad reads, their bad bounces, those kind of things. And we saw that on Monday night, or Monday afternoon rather, they played a pretty good game. Their mistakes killed them. They clawed their way back, and then another mistakes and bad reads in their own zone, and they end up, from a very good third period, they end up getting 0 points. And that's been a long-running theme of this year. And I don't think they have quite figured out how to work their way out of it yet.
How concerned are you about team unity? And the reason I bring that up, it was only a couple of weeks ago that, Daryl Sutter pissed off a lot of people with his comments after Jacob Pelche's first game. My belief is those were completely aimed at the media, and that was him pushing back on some things that had been written and said. Since then, he's come out, he said nice things about Pelche. But I believe we were all kind of made aware, Elliot Friedman, Chris Johnson, there was all kinds of NHL insiders that said, he's a good guy, he's a nice guy. And everybody, we like Daryl, but his team's not getting along with him right now. That came to the surface. Here we are 3 weeks later. How concerned are we about team unity?
That's hard to say. I'll say this, dating back to his time with the Kings, when Daryl's always kind of a hard ass, and he's always been like this, and he's had a ton of success. And I think when things are going well, you can deal with a hard ass boss, because you're like, okay, I get it. He wants us to do things like this, and this is the reason why we're seeing results. Great. When you're not seeing the results, it can hit a little bit harder, because you can only be whipped so much before there's just nothing else to give. And, he's been a really good tactical coach. I mean, if you look through the last 20 years of Flames coaches, he's easily the guy who's had the most success. He's had success elsewhere, success here. We've gone through hard-ass coaches before to varying degrees, and at a certain point, they just get tuned out because you can only get yelled at so much. But I think the big challenge is just, I don't think either the players or the coaching staff really anticipated the growing pains that they'd have to experience with the three new faces with Huberdeau, Uyghur, and Nazem Kadri. And I also don't think they really anticipated, to a lot of extent, the absence or the impact of the absence of Oliver Kylington would have, because you take away somebody with that kind of speed, that kind of dynamism. And, if you take Johnny Gaudreau out of the lineup, probably the most exciting player to watch in terms of just doing wacky stuff on the ice was Oliver Kylington. And, if you need somebody to skate your way in and out of trouble, somebody to add a little bit of pizzazz to the power play, to jump into the rush, they haven't had as much dynamism nearly as they did last year. And I think as a result, they really they've at times embraced a workmanlike identity, but workmanlike is tough. Workmanlike is tough, especially when you're playing all those 1-goal games, and seemingly every mistake you make in a game, even if you play a game with only 2 or 3 mistakes, if every mistake you make ends up behind your goalie, it can be demoralizing. So I don't know if it's necessarily just a coach thing, or it's just, the hockey, Rob, you've been around the game long enough. Hockey's weird. I think above most sports, hockey's a chemistry experiment. If you can have all the right ingredients, we saw this a lot during Daryl's tenure as general manager. I mean, you go out and you get the guys you got, and on paper you go, okay, that makes sense. And then sometimes it just doesn't click. And, this year it just hasn't clicked, I think, to the degree they really want it to. And I think they've been sort of scrambling to try to find answers.
Well, it's funny. You referenced, I believe, the 13-14 season. It might have been that season. It might have been the season after. But there was a famous sequence after a Saturday game on Hockey Night in Canada where they were interviewing Lance Bowman, and all of a sudden Brian McGrattan and Matt Stajan both came out in the sumo suits and in the background started fighting. And there was a lot of joy in that. And those bad teams had to find a way to create joy. One of the criticisms of Darryl in the 2006 season, after the lockout coming back, the one in which they lost Anaheim, was that it was too workmanlike. It was always a business trip. There was no joy. I wonder a little bit about that. Having said that, I see this interview with Milan Lucic on Hockey Night in Canada with Elliot Friedman on Saturday. He's, he didn't, seem overly stressed. He seemed to have a little bit of fun with it. I just look at this club and I go back to my original assessment. There's nobody that can make the case that they are overachieving. Every one of us looks at this team and goes, there should be more. And I'm just, again, chemistry, you said it, it's a chemistry set. And I'm very curious to see what happens in the next 10 days leading us to the trade deadline. That's where I want to go next with you, Ryan. Before we do that, so Stone goes on IR today. Walker Duehr gets recalled. Is that the transaction list?
Yeah, they're back at 23 bodies. Stone's on the IR. They're carrying 7 defensemen. So I guess Dennis Gilbert will be the 6th guy until Stone's ready to go again. And Connor Mackey will remain the 7th man for seemingly, I mean, he's getting paid very well, but you kind of feel for the guy never really getting a chance to play. And then, we joke about the every little mistake kind of bad luck part. Connor Mackey in the games he's been in, he hasn't been that bad. He's just been tremendously unlucky, like a bad penalty early, a bad read early. And I'm pretty sure if you look at the numbers, like they've been chasing early in a lot of games where he's been on the ice, and a lot of it hasn't been his fault. But if you're the coaching staff, if you ask me, would you give him a lot of leash based on the results you've seen? I don't know if I do it either.
But I think you got to develop. Like that's my one criticism of Darryl. Well, my one main criticism of Darryl, and it's not like he cares, but it's not as much a criticism as a philosophy. Darryl Sutter has a certain type of player that he wants: a Trevor Lewis, a Richie, Marcus Nielsen, a Billy Neiman. He wants guys that have been baked a little bit and have come through the league. I always remember, Darryl's laid it out when he was a general manager. A young player has a 3-year plan. His first year, he comes in the American Hockey League. He learns how to be a pro. The second year, he gets a couple of games up and sees what it's like at the NHL level. Year 3, halfway through the season, he comes up again and he sticks. That's the David Moss, Eric Nystrom model, whatever you want to call him. Mangiapane was like that.
Bradford Livings used kids, though. I mean, their philosophies are really similar. I mean, Rasmus Anderson played the majority of his first year and then got a taste and then worked his way up. Mangiapane, Dubé. And, I don't think you go out and you bring in a 2-time Stanley Cup winning coach with development in mind. I mean, you'd love to see it. You probably should see some development of your younger guys, but I don't think development is front of mind for Daryl Sutter most of the time.
No, it's not, but I believe it has to be. I don't believe that you can Frankie Corrado, Connor Mackey, which is what they've done, right? They've done. And he'll walk away and he'll go to a different organization. At some point.
He and Matthew Phillips are both pending Group 6 free agents.
Yep. Don't get me started on Phillips. Don't get me started on Phillips.
NHL players, but the lack of window they've gotten at the NHL level really is sort of the thing that's going to make it tough for them to stick around the organization. And, I fully expect both guys to walk on July 1st and, stick somewhere else. But, I'll
throw a bouquet back at you. You've watched enough hockey. Are you telling me that Matthew Phillips cannot play in the National Hockey League?
Based on how he plays
I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm just saying you look at he can play in the National Hockey League as far as I'm concerned.
He's a fantastic AHL player, and I don't think he hasn't had a chance to really play his way out of the NHL. He hasn't had a chance to play his way into the NHL. He's had the benefit of some really good line mates and some really good coaches and really good circumstances in the American League, but he's flourished under them. And I don't think, having seen what we've seen out of Pelche, who's not that much bigger, maybe a bit more of an all-around player, but not that much bigger, I still think Phillips has some NHL upside. I don't know how much, but he's definitely got the speed, the elusiveness, the head for the game to do something at this level.
Well, I feel like the new guy coming in that wants to fight an argument of 6 weeks ago, but here we are. No, but see, I think he's Pelche with a little more experience and a little more seasoning. And, he may be Austin Zarnik. He could be Austin Zarnik. He could be Sven Barchi. Sure. But I also think he's, you watched him in the American League. I watched him in the American League. Who made who go? Did he make Adam Ruzicka go, or did Adam Ruzicka make him go?
I would say more consistently it was Phillips making Ruzicka go.
Yes. I think he makes the players around him better.
Phillips is all this dating back to his draft year. I covered Ruzicka's draft. I covered a bunch of drafts. The watch for from scouts was Adam Ruzicka. He's big, he's talented, but he doesn't work all that hard because he hasn't had to. He's always been, because of his size, been told, he's been given a ton of chances, and nothing against the player. I mean, he's a product of the circumstances, but so is Matthew Phillips. And when you're told, the draft year that for Matthew Phillips, he was a walk-on for the Victoria Royals. He didn't get drafted. He tried out. He made the team. He played 1 year in the Western League. He was a point-a-game player, just shy of it. He was the Rookie of the Year, and he was a 6th or 7th round draft pick. Actually, the Flames only got the draft pick because Nicholas Backstrom made his way back from the mall in time to sign his waiver, to fax it in. I love that story, by the way. But but with Phillips has always been told, Phillips, Gaudreau, Pelche to a certain extent have always been told, oh, you're doing great, but you won't be able to do it at the bigger level. And some guys just get motivated by that. And I don't think you can have an entire team of sub 5'10" guys who are motivated but might not have the size, but you also can have a bunch of guys who are Mark Jankowski size, Adam Ruzicka size, those kind of guys but you can't bitch and whine about not having skill and then not give skill guys time. Yeah. That's my problem in all of this. And it took Pelche 6 games to finally get in the lineup. He was up for 2 weeks. And the problem I have, Ryan, is right now it would have to be, if I was going to force this issue. That's why I think I'm fighting an argument that's everybody's moved on from, because the only guy that could come out really in my mind for Phillips right now is Pelche, because it's a waste. Don't play him on the 4th line. It's a waste of time. And we'll get into this probably later in the collegiate season, but
Yeah.
the Matt Coronado question is going to have to be discussed at some
we're not
point,
getting into that later in the season. That's coming up here in a second or two.
Coronado is one of the best goal scorers in the entire NCAA. He dragged Harvard kicking and screaming to a national championship appearance last year. They were a fairly mediocre to above average college team, and then a couple of guys went to the Olympics, and he got a bigger role, and he got hot, and he just every time they needed a game winner or a key goal or something, he was the guy. And he's been that guy for them this year. And if you're asking him, like if you're talking to him, hey, do you want to come sign with the Flames? The answer would be, where does he go? Where does he fit? Even though I think he has a lot of attributes. I think that, if you showed a tape of him to, to Daryl Sutter, Daryl would fall in love with him. But he's 5'10", he's 180-ish, but he's good at everything. Yeah.
And he can play. Play. But see, I'm going to take umbrage with something you said earlier about Daryl and Connor Mackey. If you're Coronado, I'm thinking of Frankie. If you're Matt and you're looking at the Flames right now, are you coming? Do you want to come? Like part of the reason you have to develop Mackey, part of the reason you have to develop Phillips is so that your organization will be attractive and retain players. You just had your two best draft picks of the last 15 years walk away and go somewhere else when they could. Sorry, that's part of it. There's a giant complex mixture to this. But part of what you have to do is show players that you'll get opportunity here. Yes, Mackey has not been great. I'm not saying force him down everybody's throat. But my God, Stone wasn't on anybody's radar, was he? I mean, he's the perfect 6'7" swing guy. But come on now. And that's where my frustration comes here is, if you start using up your capital to get players to bring in the lineup to keep this team afloat, where are you going to be in 3 or 4 years? Are you going to be able to sign free agent college players and Europeans? Are you going to be able to get good young?
Let's call a spade here, Rob. I mean, right now, is it really clear what the direction of the franchise is? Like they might be able to make the playoffs, they might not. It's hard to really tell. Like, you have a GM in the last year of his contract. You have a coach who's in his 60s who, depending on, if this team falls off a cliff, maybe he doesn't come back. If the team goes on a run, maybe he's here for a while. Like, I think there's a lot of uncertainty about where this ship goes. And if I'm Coronado, like I was talking to someone about this at the game the other night, if I'm Coronado, you know what? I might not sign right at the end of the season, but I might just hang out, I'll go on a trip. I'll finish my classes. I'll go on a vacation to Florida or somewhere, or to Mexico. And then when I come back, I'll see how the Flames are looking.
You don't think an American kid in college thinking that he can play that card on the Flames? Absolutely, he'll play that card on the Flames. Why wouldn't you play that card on the Flames? Right? I've set up for that.
I've had, well, it is and it isn't though, because like there's only a handful of players who really pull that card, and honestly, it's happened.
Adam Fox.
They still got something for him, and I think the difference is I know no one wants to hear about this.
And you know this. What did they get for him?
He was put in the Lindholm Hanifin trade. I don't think that trade gets done without that player included. Your Honor, the defense cedes to the prosecution in this case. If you're keeping track at home, and we'll put up a little thing, Ryan gets 1 point out of that, by the way. Because Coronado's a first round pick. Let's just say, worst case scenario, he Schultzes the Flames. They get a compensatory second round pick out of it. So it's not like if things absolutely go pear-shaped on them, they don't leave empty handed.
No, they don't leave empty-handed. But which would you rather have, a second-round piece or Matt?
Oh, I want the guy who scores goals over the mystery box anytime.
Right. And my point in all of this is I go back to, and you're going to learn real quick, Ryan, I love to fight fights. I'm going back to the comment about, is it Daryl's job to develop players? Yes, it is Daryl's job to develop players. In this day and age, it is. It wasn't when he started this job. I mean, not this job, but when he started as a head coach in Chicago and San Jose and even Calgary. But nowadays, I think you have to have a more fulsome look at what a head coach does at the National Hockey League level. And part of it is asset development, whether you like it or not, right? and especially with an ownership group that is never going to let you blow it up. This ownership group will not let you blow it up. I don't believe that for a second.
Especially if they're about to sign a big check for a new building. Like, I don't think they want to have a bad team leading into that.
Nope. And they never have. They wouldn't let Feaster say rebuild. He wasn't allowed to say the R word. Come on. And I don't, to me, if that's the case, then you've got to have buy-in from your head coach in developing your players. And that means Matt Phillips should have gotten some more games. What it really means is that Matt Phillips and Pelletier should go up and down and exchange position. You can't do that anymore. Pelletier does not need waivers, but Matt Phillips would need waivers, right? So you can't just send one down, bring the other one up. I get that part. But it bothers me a little bit that a team that is desperate for scoring has this guy that does nothing but score, and they don't give him a try. And Daryl knows more about hockey. Well, Daryl knows more about hockey than I'll ever know. He's got 2 Stanley Cups. I secede. This is an opinion, not a fact, Ryan. But it frustrates me that this hockey club is sitting Connor Mackey. What confidence does he have? I don't know. We haven't even brought up the DW question. And it's still too early. I don't think he has to play this year. I don't think the goalie has to come up yet. But at some point, you're going to have to make room for him, aren't you?
I think their long-term plan is to hope that someone makes them an incredible offer for one of their 3 or 4 goalies, and then they make some room. But, Wolf doesn't need waivers for this season or for 2 more seasons until Dan Vladar's contract is up. So worst case scenario, you park him and then you trade Vladar when you need to. But they also have a $6 million goaltender who hasn't really been playing like a $6 million goaltender, and it's easy to make comparisons. Yeah. I mean, they have a guy who, Wolf he led I think he was first or second in the American League in wins last year, basically led them in every category. He's first or second in every category this year. At a certain point, you almost have to use him, right?
Yes. You're not wishing for an injury or something like that, but at some point something happens, I would put it this way. He can't be Matt Keatley. You can't get an injury, call him up and sit him on the bench. Now, Keatley got to play, obviously, in Colorado. We all remember that. But you know what I'm saying? There was that period of time in the early 2000s that the backup goalie was death around here. I understand.
I remember I was in the building that one year where they won the division, but they ran out of cap space, and poor Curtis McElhenney had to pitch a shutout against the Oilers with they're missing 4 guys because they had no money. So there's a lot of things that go into that, and I am still trying to back up.
Yeah, well, and it's funny you bring up McElhenney, one of the true gentlemen in this game, one of my favorites, and I will never forgive
Stanley Cup winner,
exactly.
Curtis McElhenney.
And I will never forgive Mike Keenan. Never forgive Mike Keenan, because he played in a game in Detroit when those Detroit teams were still good. They got to overtime. It was the second half of back-to-back. They played Montreal the night before. The plane got snowed in. They didn't get in until 4:00 in the morning. And McElhenney stood on his frickin' head. And I'll never forget, in 4-on-4 overtime, frickin' Bertuzzi gave it up at the line and the wing score. And then Keenan threw McElhenney under the bus after that game. I just will not refuse to accept anything to do with Mike Keenan for that one comment alone. All right. Eventually we're going to run out of SD card space or something. So I do need to move ahead on a few things, but I want to know, what are you expecting? You were asked in your mailbag today, I think a couple of times, about what to expect the Flames to do the trade deadline. I think they're buyers. I don't think they're big game hunting as much as they're trying to solve problems up front and on the back end. But here we are, 12 days ahead or whatever it is. What are you expecting from the local hockey heroes?
My gut tells you right now that it's going to be small stuff like Forbort style, Vandenberg style, like 4th rounders for depth guys kind of moves. They have the cap space to do bigger things, but compare this team to the team we had here a year ago, where if you told me, after the run they went on, that, if Brad Treliving called me up and said, "Hey, I'm going to trade a 1st-round pick for Tyler Toffoli," I would have gone, "Yeah, that makes sense. Based on what you have, what you think you don't have, a little bit of extra offensive oomph, right shot guy. Yeah, it makes sense." This year, there's really that kind of a big move doesn't make sense. I don't think they have the the assets to really do a big swing. I don't know if they have the cap space to add anything long-term. And I don't know if they have the stomach to really move anything substantial when the team has been this inconsistent. So, I think 4th and 5th round picks for, I think the most thing they do, maybe they give up a 3rd and try to get Luke Shen, and then they try to find like an extra 4th line center or someone for, maybe push Ruzicka down the rotation a bit. But I don't think it's going to be anything terribly substantial.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think, and I believe it was you that pointed out on your Twitter feed that if you look at Brad Treliving's record, I mean, he gives up first rounders, but he's getting something back with term, right? He doesn't give up first rounders for rentals. Why would you deviate?
Even the big trades, like I know, in retrospect, I didn't love the Travis Hamonic price tag when they made the trade. I thought a first 2 seconds for a guy that doesn't really move the needle offensively was a little bit much. But for, you can squint and sort of make sense of what they wanted to do. They had just been pushed around by Anaheim in a 4-round series. So I think adding somebody who had a bit more, of snarl to his game and some defensive acumen made sense. But, it's every other time they've done it. Like even if you want to look at the, moving a 1st-round pick, the one they got in the Tkachuk trade, moving it to get rid of Monahan's cap space, it allowed them to sign, Nazem Kadri long-term. And if you want to look at it that way, 1st-rounder for the ability to have Kadri, I mean, that makes sense. So I think they look at things like that, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's going to be a big eventful day.
I was really thought we were going to spend most of this conversation. That means you're going to have to come back on the arena and the update. I am, and I've said it a couple of times, absolutely a pox on everybody's house that I retire in 2018 and I unretire in 2023 and nothing. You're
at least expecting to see a hole in the ground, right?
I was expecting to fall into the hole in the ground. Absolutely. And here we are. For the uninitiated, those who haven't been paying close attention, we are back at the table, but it's, I wouldn't say not traditional. It's very tepid at this point. What's the latest? Bring us up to speed on the arena.
I mean, things are happening, Rob. I mean, I think the challenge is at City Hall. So a lot of times the updates we get are behind closed doors, and then we hear whispers from people we know around City Hall. So there's not a lot officially out there. There's definitely things happening behind the scenes. They went from, they started talking officially that the city of Calgary hired CAA Icon. CAA is Creative Artists Agency. CAA Icon is the branch that just negotiates arena and stadium deals. They know everybody, and they know everybody who has money, which is helpful in this situation. But CAA Icon is negotiating the deal on behalf of the city. Calgary Sports and Entertainment, I assume, is represented by John Bean and a lot of the same people who were representing them last time. But they're talking. They've been unofficially talking for the better part of 2021, big chunk of 2022. Now they're officially back at the table, and there's been enough going on that City Hall, like the committee, is meeting monthly now. They don't have their March meeting scheduled yet, but this feels like the kind of thing where a lot of stuff's going to happen in a hurry once things start happening. That's kind of what happened last time, where there was sort of a lot of, in the summer of 2019, there was a lot of meetings. And then all of a sudden we got told, well, you probably want to come down here because we have a presentation for everybody. I have a feeling it'll be something like that. I don't know how quickly it'll come together, but let's be honest here. The city knows how much money they feel like putting in, and it's in the budget, and they didn't spend that part of the budget on something else. And they could have, because they have a lot of other needs they need to meet.
They sure do.
Calgary Sports and Entertainment have, they had an idea of how much they want to spend. The short answer is less than they were asked to spend last time. When costs started escalating during the pandemic, as an aside. So April 2021, the sides are like, whoa, things cost a little bit more than we thought. Let's figure this out. And that was before the supply chain stuff really bit everybody in the ass.
Yep.
So by July, they had renegotiated the deal. The Calgary Sports and Entertainment was on the hook for everything above. I think that the city was kicking in $287.5 million for capital costs and then land and stuff. But essentially for the building itself, $287 million. And then the Flames were on the hook for everything else. but they were also going to be running the show for construction and procurement. So in theory, if things went over cost, it'd be because they managed it poorly. And that was sort of the trade-off they made. So flash forward, to December, they finally started to have a fairly, solid budget come together. It wasn't quite done yet. The budget wasn't going to be ready until about May or June of 2021 or 2022 rather. But they sat down, they went, oh crap, this is going to be a lot more than we thought. And they thought that they were signing up for 300 million, maybe 350 if things got weird. And it probably would have been closer to 400 million, 450 had they actually gone ahead with it. So they said, whoa, let's not do that. And so then they went back to the drawing board. Costs have gone down, at least for a lot of the stuff. People I know who work in construction told me that at the time of the deal imploding, things were costing 3 to 5 times what they originally thought they were for any kind of construction materials. Now, depending on what you're looking at, it's 1.5 to 2 times as much. Yep. So they still got stuff to figure out. I don't think that the budget will be the same as the budget last time, but the reason I think this could happen very quickly is they had a deal last time, and I think they had a deal that really met everybody's needs. The city needs / wants a new shiny bauble in Stampede Park to attract people. They have the convention center, they're getting a hotel, they have the casino down there. They want to get a bunch of cool shit downtown so that it's less of a, it's less post-apocalyptic after 6 p.m. It's right now they're working on it, but the Stampede Park since the 80s has basically been, on game days, cars in a parking lot and there's not a lot of stuff going on. And on off nights, it looks like, Dawn of the Dead in terms of a zombie wasteland. So they want to make it programmatically more fun, more of a lively place on non-game days. So the arena is part of it. They have a lot of things they're trying to do. And so that's the justification the city has for throwing money into a project like this. They're not getting all their money back. I think the cost recapture thing they had last time was only a small amount. I think they would have gotten about $130 million or something back from it, but it solves a problem for them. And that's what they really liked. And, the city hasn't really, it's for better or for worse, city council has gotten a reputation both under this mayor and the previous mayor that, they weren't really great at making big things happen. The Olympics was mishandled in a lot of different ways. I don't think it's necessarily one individual's fault, but there wasn't really consistent messaging. There wasn't a consistent sales pitch to the voter, pro or for or against. And I think that made it easier to say no to it. For the arena, I think City Hall has done a better job at sort of being very upfront about here are the risks, here are the pros, here are the cons, here's what we like about it, here's the need it meets. And because of that, I think they still feel like it's something they can justify spending money on. I still think they only want to spend the money in the Stampede Park area because they don't want to erode the plan that they made themselves. So that's the long and the short of it. I think we'll probably hear some updates in the next couple of weeks on how things are. I'm told things are happening behind the scenes. I always assume that they are, but it's nice to be told once in a while that things are. But until something happens, until we have some sort of a big boisterous announcement, I think people are going to approach this project with a great deal of skepticism. And I think based on the past 20 some years of discussions that we've heard about, skepticism is warranted at this point.
Oh, absolutely. The fact that it broke down like it did the last time after there was a signed agreement, again, a pox on everybody's house involved. I will leave you with this, and these are not technical questions, and I appreciate the depth in which you got into the construction materials and things like that, and also the recapture, because that is part of this conversation. So these are not those. Two things that jump out at me. One, since almost day one, let's go back to when Calgary Next was announced. We never
salad days of 2015.
Right, but we never did get detailed drawings or pictures. I mean, I remember doing shows with Ken King, and people were upset because there was seating in the field house the wrong way. And he goes, no, don't look at that. This is just, we have. There's never been a dream here. There's never been. There's artist renderings and there's things like that, but they've always pushed back and said, well, these aren't them, and there's never been anything to show the public and go, this is what it could look like. Can you imagine yourself here? This is what we want it to be. There needs to be a dream in this, and there needs to be a hero. And by a hero, I don't care, CSEC side, city side, this city needs a hero. It needs somebody right now to stand up and go, screw this, screw that. We need to get this done. We need some. Now, I don't know if we live in a society anymore that allows heroes. I don't. I think if Batman lived in Calgary, half the people would love him. The other half be chasing down, trying to take the mask off. The cowl. But this city needs somebody to stand up for it. It needs somebody, Frank King. It needs this era's Frank King. It needs a politician to have set of cojones to go, I know not all my constituents are going to like this, but bear with me. And again, those are not hard-hitting questions. They're just things that I want to leave you with, that I get very frustrated that we don't have a dream and we don't have a hero.
Yeah. And honestly, I think the thing that makes me optimistic about this thing is just the fact that, you mentioned we didn't really see much in the way of runs. On my laptop, I have plans for the new building that the Flames in the City hired HOK, a designer out of Kansas City, and Absolutely. They designed the building. Like, we should have seen more renderings from the inside of the building, because I think, from the packaging standpoint, being able to put yourself, like, you could see yourself gawking at the building from the outside, but really, figuring out how to sell the experience on the inside. I think that was the thing they didn't quite capture,
or the technology. Or anything, and this isn't about me, but in 2011, I did an 8-part series on how to build a building, and I talked to HOK. I did. I talked to them, and they were planning for a new NFL stadium in Los Angeles, which seems so absurd at the time. And they, in 2011, were talking about renewable water, and capturing the water and capturing the sunlight and what you do. Give us something. Give us the technology. Tell us, again, I'm not saying there was never pictures. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying nobody's ever shared a dream that we can see and touch and feel and smell and all of that sort of thing. And I think that's been hurt. I think that's hurt this process. I do. How can I be invested in this?
I'll say this.
Yeah.
For all his faults, you can never say Ken Kane didn't have a vision. I thought Calgary Next was a good idea that just fell apart in the details. But I thought, having Ken come out and say, this is what we want to do, here's how we want to do it. Are you on board?
Yes.
The initial sales pitch, it was well presented. It fell apart for other reasons.
The creosote. It fell apart because of the creosote. And you can't tell the city that our gift to you is we just told you have creosote. That's not the gift. The gift is cleaning up the creosote.
Well,
right?
It's a great idea, but you picked the most expensive damn place in the city to build a thing. And the narrowest part of land where there's no way in hell you can do a CRL around there, because there's nothing to rope into it to make the taxes work.
No. What's coming up on Flames Nation here in the next little while? What should we be watching for, Ryan?
Oh, Lordy, so much trade deadline stuff. And there's 3 games this week. The Flames are on the road. They got Arizona, Vegas, and Colorado. And they need to win some or all of those games in order to inch closer to a playoff spot. And if they don't win some or all those games, maybe the conversation we have will drastically change.
Maybe, but I just feel like it's going to be more of this. Mr. Pike, a pleasure and honor, sir. Thank you for bearing with us off the top. I'm glad you did, because it was really well worth it. I'm hoping that you'll feel like part of this program, and you'll continue to join us on a regular basis, because you gave us a lot today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, man. Thanks.
Ryan Pike, everybody. You can catch him and read him at flamesnation.ca. He is the managing editor. We are live today from the Oodle Noodle Studio. Yes, Oodle Noodles. Local, loved, delicious. Since opening their first store back in 2005, Oodle Noodle has been all flavor and just the right amount of weird. 2 locations, 1244 17th Avenue Southwest and 105 Main Street North in Airdrie, pickup and delivery. Couple things. Want to finish, and I've been threatening this all day, so let's get to it. Here's the manifesto. So a lot has been made, and yes, I have big giant sausage fingers, and I unplug things that I shouldn't have done. But I promise you, this is why I migrate to hockey. I say this to all small kids. I say this to anybody, because you can understand this. First time you step out on the ice, what happens? You fall down. You fall down. Then what do? You get back up. We're going to get back up tomorrow and do this show again. That's how we're going to get back up and do it again tomorrow. That's how we roll around here. Now, we are going to be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 1 to 3, live and then podcasts afterwards. For those of you who are joining me from the previous incarnations of my programs, most of this is already old hat. For those of you who are kind enough to join us for the first time and try us out, I appreciate it. If you like it, please tell somebody. If you don't, what I would ask is that you give us a little bit of a break and come back and see if you like it in a little while. This is going to be a Calgary show. This is going to be a Calgary show. We are going to talk a lot about the Flames. We will talk about the NHL. We're going to talk about some other Calgary stories. We're going to talk to Calgary people. Not all the time, not exclusively, but it's going to be a Calgary show. I tend to use the hashtag, grammatically incorrect, by the way. Sports is fun. I believe this. I believe one of the things that we have lost on our journey is that we watch these teams, we participate in these games, we play, we're fans because the game is ultimately fun. We lose that every once in a while. We take ourselves too seriously. It's fun. This is fun. Today was fun. I love this. I think it's the first time I've ever gone toe to toe with Ryan Pike. Toe to toe, nose to nose. Sorry. Yeah. Anyway, you know what I mean. It's fun, and it's supposed to be fun. But where is the fun? Like we lose the fun around here. Part of it is we treat you like customers, not fans. We treat you like customers. We're always talking about fan development, but we treat you like customers. We got to treat you like fans. That's where it starts. Your consumption is changing, and there's no point in me sitting here going, I remember radio. No. You go where you want to go. We come to you. You're now online. You're now streaming. Fine. Let's go there. Do I miss being on the radio? Yep. But this is cool. This will do. Thank you very much. Safe as death. There's too much safe around here. We're too safe. We don't want to do that. We don't want to lose money. We don't want to do that. We don't want to spend money. We don't want to do that. Nobody's done that. Safe as death. It's too much safe. We got to take some risks. We're going to try and take some risks here. We are. We're going to try and take some risks. We're going to fail. We're going to fail. We failed. But we'll learn. We'll learn. Tell all my kids this when I'm coaching. The number one learning instrument anywhere is failure. You learn way more from failure than you do from anything else. This show is a product of failure. I am a product of failure. I'm very proud of that fact. And every once in a while, we're going to fail. But we're going to pick ourselves up, as we said before, and we're going to come back at it. And I think more people need to do that. We need leaders. We don't need managers. Good Lord, we got a lot of managers, don't we? You look around society, politicians, managers, lots of managers. People are managing, manage. Let's be safe here. We need more leaders. Guess what? Leaders don't make everybody happy. They don't. But they get stuff done. And we're going to promote leadership on this program. We'll get to that in a second. Community is huge for me. And one of the really, I've talked very openly and very positively about the people at the Nation Network and the Flames Nation people, Jared and Jay and those guys. One of the things that we haven't talked about is that I'm doing this show, but they've also asked me to take an active role in helping Flames Nation get involved in the community. And I am going to take them up on that offer, because to me, being of service is the highest thing that a person can do. It's the most important thing. I learned that from everybody that's paved the way for me, from John Short to Peter Martin, my dad, Ken Babby, my favorite coach in the world. Service, to be of service. We are going to be giving back to the community. And I talk about this all the time. I'm not interested in the tinfoil hat network news. So don't come to me with your conspiracy theories and all that crap. I have no time for that. I want to give you information, not affirmation. Okay? I said that over and over. This is the manifesto. I'll say it once. You come to this program to be challenged. You come to this program to hear facts where they are. You'll hear my opinions, but I don't ever think my opinions are the facts. Sometimes they correspond. Sometimes they don't. But what I really want you to do, if this show does its job tomorrow, water cooler, practice or whatever, You know, he made me think about this. That's not how I thought about it, but he made me think. Or, you know, that's a good, we need more of that. We're too black and white, cut and dry. We're all in teams now. We're all in tribes. We need to be able to listen to another opinion and absorb it. So this show is going to be that. I don't want anybody walking away going, Rob Kerr told me to think this. I don't. Think what you want to think. Draw your own conclusions. Read everything, listen to everything, watch everything, and draw your own conclusions. And the last thing I will say, we are broadcasting live from Treaty 7 territory. I want to thank my good friend, Dr. Tyler White. Without him, I don't think I would be here today. The CEO of Siksika Health is an amazing guy. And our background, there you go. Our background, that's one of the times we were out at Siksika with a practice. So I want to thank him. And it's not something I'm saying today. It's something that we're talking about all the time. And everyone is welcome here. This is an all-inclusive, safe podcast. Everybody is welcome here. So if that makes me some sort of woke guy, fine. I'm okay with it. Because as far as I'm concerned, do unto others as you'd like to have them done unto you. This has been so much fun. So much fun. Thank you. I hope you'll come back tomorrow. I hope you'll come back Friday. Again, if you liked it, please review it, give it all that stuff helps. Check out my website, robkerr.ca. You can check out my consulting business, which I launched today. You can check out my community page if you want to give back, or you can take a look at the page that's built around this show. Still a little bit of work to be done, a little rough around the edges. It's been a while. Big sausage fingers pulling out cords that I shouldn't pull out. Thanks to the Tan Man for doing an outstanding job of getting all this stuff together and putting up with my BS today. Again, was it perfect? No. But you know what? We'll come back tomorrow. We'll try again. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you. This has been Just a Game here on the Nation Network.